The Chevy Blazer is back. Except it's not a Blazer. It's a crossover SUV that looks like it was designed to haul yoga mats and Costco runs, not crawl over boulders. The Ford Bronco is back, and this time they actually tried to make it feel like a Bronco. The Mitsubishi Eclipse is back as a crossover. The Fiat 500 is back as an EV. The Dodge Charger is back as a four-door EV with fake exhaust sounds piped through speakers. The Toyota Supra is back with a BMW engine. The Hummer is back as an electric truck that weighs 9,000 pounds. The Integra is back as a sedan. The name on the badge says one thing. The car underneath says something completely different. And every single time this happens, the internet erupts. Comment sections catch fire. Forums go to war. People who owned the original write essays about betrayal. People who never owned the original write essays about betrayal. Everyone has an opinion, and most of them are angry. But here's the thing, nobody asks why. Why do car companies keep doing this? They know the backlash is coming. They've seen the comment sections. They've watched the memes. They bring back a legendary name, slap it on something completely different, and then act surprised when people are upset. Are they stupid? Are they lazy? Do they just hate us? No. They're doing math. Very specific, very calculated, very expensive math. And when you understand the math, you'll understand why every car company on the planet would rather resurrect a dead name than create a new one, even if it means making the internet angry. Let's get into it. Creating a new car name from scratch sounds simple. Pick a cool word, stick it on the car. Done. Except it's not simple at all. It's one of the hardest, most expensive, and most legally nightmarish things a car company can do. First, the name has to be available, not just as a car name, as a trademark in every market the car will be sold in: the United States, Canada, Europe, China, Australia, the Middle East, South America. Every country has its own trademark registry, and a name that's available in the US might be trademarked by a different company in Germany or a completely different industry in Japan. The legal search alone, checking a proposed name against global trademark databases, existing registrations, pending applications, and common law usage, takes months and costs significant money. Then the name has to not mean something terrible in another language. This is not a joke. Chevy famously had problems with the Nova in Spanish-speaking markets because Nova translates loosely to doesn't go, which is not great for a car name. The Mitsubishi Pajero had to be renamed in Spanish-speaking countries because Pajero is a vulgar slang term. The Ford Pinto had issues in Brazil for similar reasons. Every proposed name has to be linguistically screened across dozens of languages to avoid accidental profanity, negative connotations, or cultural insensitivity. That's a real job. People get paid real money to do it. Then the name has to be memorable, pronounceable, and distinctive enough to stand out in a market where there are hundreds of competing models. It needs to sound right. It needs to look right on the badge. It needs to be easy to say in a TV commercial. It needs to work as a hashtag. It needs to have an available domain name. Or the company needs to buy one from whoever's squatting on it, which can cost tens of thousands of dollars for a desirable URL. And after all of that, the name has zero built-in awareness. Nobody knows it. Nobody has an emotional connection to it. Nobody Googles it. Nobody searches for it on YouTube. Nobody walks into a dealership and asks for it by name. The car company has to build that recognition from scratch through advertising, marketing, press coverage, and time. A lot of time. Building a name from nothing to household recognition can take years and hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing spend. Now compare that to bringing back a name that already exists. Bronco, Blazer, Supra, Charger. These names already live in people's heads. They already have emotional weight. They already have search volume. They already have nostalgia. They already have stories attached to them. The car company doesn't have to build awareness. The awareness is already there, preloaded, free, and powerful. All they have to do is activate it. That's the math. Creating a new name costs years and hundreds of millions of dollars in building recognition. Recycling an old name costs nothing in awareness because the awareness already exists. In a world where marketing budgets are finite and attention is the scarcest resource on earth, recycling a name is the most efficient move available. Let's talk about why old names have power in the first place. The answer is nostalgia, and nostalgia is one of the most potent forces in consumer psychology. Nostalgia isn't just remembering the past fondly. It's a neurological event. When you encounter something associated with a positive memory, a song, a smell, a name, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that fires when you eat something delicious, win a game, or get a notification on your phone. Nostalgia literally feels good. It's a drug, and the dose is triggered by familiarity. When a car company says the Bronco is back, they're not just announcing a product, they're triggering a cascade of associations in the brains of millions of people. The original Bronco, trail riding, freedom, that one movie scene, your uncle's Bronco that smelled like dirt and gasoline, the poster on the wall, the idea of what that car represented, even if you never owned one, even if you were born after it was discontinued. The name doesn't just carry recognition, it carries meaning, emotion, identity. A new name, the Ford Wilderness or whatever they might have called it, would have none of that. It would be a blank canvas. The Bronco name is a painting that's already finished. It already means something. The car company just has to point at it and say, "Remember this? It's back, and you can buy one." This works even on people who have no personal history with the original vehicle. Nostalgia is cultural, not just personal. You don't have to have owned a 1969 Camaro to feel something when you hear the name Camaro. The name carries cultural weight, from movies, from car shows, from stories, from the collective identity of what that name represents in automotive history. That cultural weight transfers to the new product, giving it instant credibility and emotional resonance that no new name could achieve. Car companies know this. They've studied it. They've focus grouped it. They've tested new names against old names in consumer research, and the old names win. Every time. Not because the old cars were better, because the names carry freight that money can't buy and time can't replace. There's something deeper happening with car names that goes beyond simple brand recognition. For a lot of people, car names are identity markers. They're not just products, they're statements about who you are, what you value, and where you belong. When someone says, "I drive a Mustang," they're not just describing a vehicle, they're claiming membership in a tribe. Mustang people. The Mustang community. The culture, the meets, the Facebook groups, the wave you give another Mustang driver on the highway. The name is the entry point to that identity, and when the manufacturer changes what the name means, when Mustang suddenly includes an electric crossover, it feels like the tribe's identity is being diluted. The membership card now covers a different vehicle that the existing members didn't sign up for. This is why the backlash to name recycling is so emotional. It's not really about the car, it's about identity. When Dodge says the Charger is now an EV, the people who built their automotive identity around what Charger means feel like something is being taken from them. Their name, their community, their definition of what it means to own that car. The manufacturer is rewriting the dictionary, and the people who learned the old definition aren't happy about it. The psychological dynamic is also why some name revivals generate more outrage than others. The intensity of the backlash is proportional to the strength of the identity community around the original name. The Eclipse had a devoted following, but it was a niche enthusiast car. The anger was real but contained. The Mustang has one of the largest, most passionate, most identity-driven communities in the entire automotive world. Putting the name on a crossover EV wasn't just a product decision. It was an identity crisis for millions of people who consider Mustang a core part of who they are as car enthusiasts. Car companies understand this dynamic, and they do it anyway. Because the identity community, the hardcore enthusiasts who care deeply about what the name means, represents a tiny fraction of the total addressable market. The vast majority of buyers don't have an identity tied to the name. They just think it sounds cool, and that's enough. There's a generational dimension to name recycling that doesn't get discussed enough. When a car company revives a name, they're often targeting a different generation than the one that loved the original. The people who owned original Broncos in the 1970s and 80s are now in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. They're not the primary target market for a new $40,000 SUV. Their children are. The 30 to 45 demographic that grew up hearing stories about Dad's Bronco, seeing photos, maybe riding in one as a kid. The name triggers secondhand nostalgia, not personal memory, but inherited memory. And that inherited nostalgia is remarkably effective at driving purchase consideration because it combines the warmth of family association with the freedom of making your own choice. The same pattern plays out across every revival. The people who owned original Eclipses in the 1990s are now in their 40s and 50s, and many of them are buying crossovers because their lives have changed. They have kids. They need cargo space. They can't justify a two-seat coupe anymore. The Eclipse Cross isn't targeting the 22-year-old who wants a turbo coupe. It's targeting the 42-year-old who used to want a turbo coupe and now needs a family car but still wants to feel something when they look at the badge on their steering wheel. Is that cynical? A little. Does it work? The sales numbers say yes, for some revivalers more than others. The generational bet is a calculated gamble that the emotional pull of a familiar name will overcome the logical disconnect between what the name used to mean and what the product actually is. Sometimes the bet pays off. Sometimes the disconnect is too large and the market rejects it. But the bet is always being made. Here's a part of the story most people don't think about. Trademarks expire if you don't use them. If a car company discontinues a model and lets the trademark lapse, anyone can register that name. A competitor, a startup, a guy in a garage making aftermarket parts who wants to call his company Bronco Performance. Once the trademark is gone, it's a free-for-all. So car companies hoard names. They maintain trademark registrations on model names long after the cars themselves are discontinued, specifically so nobody else can use them. Ford has trademarks on names they haven't produced in decades. GM holds registrations on model names from the 1960s. These are strategic assets, options in a portfolio that can be exercised when the timing is right. Maintaining a trademark is cheap compared to creating a new one. A few $1,000s in renewal fees every few years versus millions in legal searches, linguistic screening, and marketing for a brand new name. The trademarks sit in a vault, appreciating in nostalgic value, waiting for the moment when the market conditions, the product plan, and the consumer sentiment align. When that moment arrives, the company pulls the name off the shelf, dusts it off, and puts it on a new car. The trademark is already secured globally. The linguistic screening was done decades ago. The consumer awareness is already built. The legal work is already done. All they need is a car to put it on. This is why car companies sometimes revive names for vehicles that seem completely unrelated to the original. The name isn't being recycled because the new car is similar to the old car. The name is being recycled because the name itself is a valuable asset, and the company wants to deploy that asset on whatever product they think will benefit most from its recognition. The connection to the original vehicle is secondary. The marketing value of the name is primary. Not every name revival is a disaster. Some of them are genuinely brilliant. Let's look at the ones that worked and understand why. The Ford Bronco, 2021. This is the gold standard of name recycling done right. Ford brought back the Bronco name and actually made a vehicle that honored the original's identity. A rugged, capable, off-road focused SUV with removable doors, a removable roof, available manual transmission, and serious trail hardware. It looked like a Bronco. It felt like a Bronco. It did Bronco things. The name and the product were aligned, and the result was a massive commercial success. Reservations sold out almost immediately. Waitlists stretched for months. The internet loved it because Ford didn't just use the name, they respected what the name meant. The key was alignment. The original Bronco was an off-road machine. The new Bronco is an off-road machine. The name set an expectation, and the product met it. When the promise of the name matches the reality of the car, Nostalgia becomes a turbocharger for sales instead of a source of backlash. The Fiat 500 2007/2012. Fiat revived the 500 name, originally from a legendary tiny city car that was the Italian Volkswagen Beetle, and made a modern tiny city car with retro styling cues. It was cute. It was small. It was Italian. It was fun. The name fit because the car's identity matched the original's purpose, an affordable, charming, small car for urban life. The retro design leaned into the nostalgia instead of running from it. It was a hit in Europe and found a niche market in the US. The Dodge Challenger 2008. Dodge brought back the Challenger as a two-door, V8-powered muscle car with retro-inspired styling that directly referenced the 1970 original. Big engine. Rear-wheel drive. Aggressive proportions. Throwback design language. The name said muscle car, and the product was unmistakably a muscle car. It's been in continuous production since 2008, with remarkably few changes, because the formula was right from day one. The Challenger proved that if you're going to recycle a name, giving people a car that looks, sounds, and drives like an evolution of the original is a winning strategy. The Toyota 86/GR86, while not technically a name revival in the traditional sense, Toyota explicitly invoked the AE86, the legendary lightweight rear-wheel drive Corolla from the 1980s, in naming and marketing the car. The philosophy was the same: lightweight, naturally aspirated, rear-wheel drive, affordable, fun. The connection was spiritual rather than literal, but it worked because the values aligned. The pattern in every success story is the same. The name creates an expectation, and the car delivers on it. The customer hears the name, imagines what it should be, and the product either matches or exceeds that imagination. And then there are the revivals that go horribly wrong. Not because the cars are bad products, some of them are perfectly competent vehicles, but because the name creates an expectation that the car can't meet. The Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross 2018. The Eclipse was one of the most iconic, affordable sports cars of the 1990s. A sleek, turbocharged all-wheel drive coupe that defined a generation of enthusiast cars. The Eclipse Cross is a compact crossover SUV. It has nothing in common with the original except 4 wheels and a Mitsubishi badge. It's not fast. It's not sporty. It doesn't look like a sports car. It's a perfectly fine crossover, but putting the Eclipse name on it guaranteed that every car enthusiast on the planet would hate it on principle. The name set an expectation of sporty performance. The product delivered school-run practicality. The mismatch was total. Mitsubishi wasn't confused. They knew what they were doing. The Eclipse name had massive recognition among car buyers in their 30s and 40s, exactly the demographic that buys crossovers. The calculation was that the name recognition would drive showroom traffic and sales among mainstream buyers, even though enthusiasts would riot online. Whether that calculation worked commercially is debatable, but the reputational damage in the enthusiast community was severe. The Chevy Blazer 2019. The Blazer was an iconic name in the SUV and off-road world, a rugged body-on-frame truck that competed with the Ford Bronco and the Jeep Cherokee. The 2019 Blazer is a mid-size crossover SUV built on a car platform. It's unibody, front-wheel drive based, and designed for suburban commuting. It has the styling aggression to look tough in a mall parking lot, but no off-road credibility to back it up. Meanwhile, Ford was about to relaunch the actual Bronco as a genuine off-road machine. The comparison was not kind. Chevy essentially took a name that meant rugged off-road capability and put it on a vehicle that meant comfortable highway cruiser. The car itself is fine, well-reviewed, decent selling, perfectly competent, but the name betrayal overshadowed the product quality. People didn't evaluate the Blazer on its own merits. They evaluated it against what Blazer was supposed to mean. The Acura Integra 2023. The original Integra was a lightweight, sharp-handling, two-door coupe that was one of the definitive enthusiast cars of the 1990s. The new Integra is a 4-door sedan based on the Civic Si platform. Is it a good car? By most accounts, yes. Is it an Integra? That depends on your definition. The four-door body style, the heavier weight, and the more mature positioning alienated the hardcore enthusiasts who associated the Integra name with a two-door, lightweight, track-ready machine. Acura tried to split the difference, making a sporty-ish sedan that evoked the Integra spirit without fully committing to the Integra formula, and ended up not fully satisfying either audience. The Dodge Charger 2024 EV. The Charger name has been through more identity changes than almost any nameplate in automotive history. Originally a two-door muscle car in the 1960s and 70s, it became a front-wheel drive economy car in the 80s, disappeared, and was revived as a four-door sedan in 2006, which bothered purists but eventually became accepted. Now it's returning again as an electric vehicle with simulated exhaust sounds. For a name that represents one of the most iconic V8 muscle cars in American history, the transition to electric power with fake engine noise is contentious, to say the least. Whether this revival works depends on whether Dodge can convince buyers that Charger means performance rather than V8 with a loud exhaust. That's a massive messaging challenge. Some manufacturers have avoided the name recycling problem entirely by switching to alphanumeric naming systems. BMW uses 3 Series, 5 Series, X5, M4. Mercedes uses C-Class, E-Class, E-Class, GLE, AMG GT. Audi uses A4, Q7, RS6. Lexus uses IS, RX, LC. The advantage is flexibility. An alphanumeric name doesn't carry the same emotional baggage as a word name. Nobody has childhood memories of a Q5. Nobody's uncle had a legendary GLC 300 that defined their automotive awakening. The name is functional, not emotional. It tells you where the car sits in the lineup without making promises about what the car will be. This means the manufacturer can change the vehicle completely from one generation to the next, switch from rear-wheel drive to front-wheel drive, go from a sedan to a crossover, convert from gas to electric without triggering the "that's not a real one" backlash. BMW can make the 4 Series a coupe, then a four-door, then an EV, and nobody accuses them of betraying the 4 Series heritage because the 4 Series doesn't have heritage in the same way a Mustang does. The disadvantage is that alphanumeric names are harder to remember, harder to differentiate, and carry less emotional weight. Quick. What's the difference between a Mercedes GLA, GLB, GLC, GLA, and GLS? If you don't follow Mercedes closely, they blur together. They're functional labels, not identities. They work for premium brands where the badge on the hood carries the emotional weight, but they'd struggle for mainstream brands where the model name needs to do the heavy lifting. This is why Ford doesn't call the Mustang the Ford S550. The name Mustang does more emotional and marketing work in 2 syllables than any alphanumeric code ever could, but that power comes with a constraint. Whatever you put the Mustang name on had better feel like a Mustang, or you'll hear about it. Speaking of Mustang, the Ford Mustang Mach-E deserves its own section because it's the most interesting and controversial name recycling experiment of the last decade. Ford took the Mustang name, arguably the most iconic American car name in history, synonymous with two-door, rear-wheel drive, V8-powered muscle cars since 1964, and put it on an electric crossover SUV. Not a two-door, not rear-wheel drive exclusively, not gas-powered, an electric crossover SUV called Mustang. The backlash was nuclear. Mustang purists considered it a desecration. Car forums melted down. Social media was merciless. "That's not a Mustang" became a meme, a rallying cry, and a comment section staple that persists to this day. But here's the twist. The Mach-E sold extremely well. It was one of the best-selling EVs in America in its launch years. It reviewed well, praised for its driving dynamics, range, technology, and overall quality. Then Ford's internal research showed that the Mustang name was a significant factor in driving consideration and purchase intent among buyers who might not have otherwise looked at a Ford EV. Ford's calculation was deliberate and transparent. They knew the enthusiast community would be angry. They also knew that the enthusiast community is a tiny fraction of the actual car-buying market. The millions of mainstream consumers who associate Mustang with exciting, American, cool, fast, vastly outnumber the enthusiasts who associate Mustang with 5.0 V8, 2 doors, manual transmission, rear-wheel drive, nothing else ever. For the mainstream buyer, Mustang on an EV means this isn't boring, this isn't a golf cart, this is exciting and fast and cool. That association drove showroom traffic and sales in a way that Ford Mach-E, without the Mustang name, never would have. Was Ford right? Commercially, yes. The car sold. The name drove interest. The product delivered on the performance promise well enough that most owners are happy. Culturally, it's still being debated. The Mustang name now means something broader than it used to, and whether that's evolution or dilution depends on who you ask. The Mach-E is the clearest example of a car company choosing commercial pragmatism over enthusiast purity, and it's a preview of what's coming as more legacy names get attached to electric vehicles. The playbook has been written. Take a beloved name, apply it to a mainstream-friendly product, absorb the enthusiast backlash, and collect the mainstream sales. Ford proved it works financially. Whether it works for the soul of the brand is a longer, slower question that won't be answered for a decade. It also created a fascinating side effect. It forced Ford to make the gas-powered Mustang even more aggressively Mustang-like to reassure the faithful. The S6550 Mustang and the Dark Horse variant exist partly because Ford needed to prove that Mustang still meant what the enthusiasts thought it meant, even while simultaneously expanding the definition. The revival of the name on the Mach-E didn't just affect the EV, it reshaped the strategy for the traditional car too. We're entering an era where name recycling will accelerate, not slow down. Here's why. The automotive industry is in the middle of the most dramatic technology transition since the invention of the car itself. Internal combustion is giving way to electric power. The vehicles are fundamentally different. Different architecture, different proportions, different driving experience, different audience in many cases. Car companies need to convince mainstream buyers to make the leap from gas to electric. And one of the most powerful tools they have for doing that is attaching familiar, trusted, emotionally resonant names to unfamiliar new products. Calling an electric SUV the Ford Explorer EV is less scary than calling it the Ford Electron or whatever new name they'd invent. The Explorer name is comfortable. People know it. People trust it. It's been America's best-selling SUV for most of its existence. Putting that name on an electric vehicle tells the mainstream buyer, this is still the thing you know and trust. It just has a new powertrain. That reassurance is worth billions in marketing that a new name would have to build from zero. Every manufacturer is doing this or planning to do it. The Porsche Macan is going electric. The Jeep Wrangler will eventually go electric. The Chevy Camaro nameplate has been discussed for potential EV application. The Dodge Charger is already there. Every iconic name in the automotive pantheon is a candidate for recycling onto an electric platform, because those names carry the emotional weight and consumer trust that the EV transition desperately needs. The enthusiasts will be angry every single time, and the cars will sell anyway. Because the math hasn't changed. Old names with built-in recognition, nostalgia, and emotional resonance are the most efficient marketing tools in the automotive industry. No new name, no matter how clever, can compete with 60 years of cultural weight. As a buyer, name recycling means you need to evaluate cars on what they are, not what they're called. The name on the badge is marketing, the car underneath is engineering. Those are two different things, and they're decided by two different departments with two different goals. When a new car launches with an old name, ignore the name. Look at the specs, look at the reviews, look at the driving impressions, look at the competition, evaluate the product on its own merits, independent of whatever emotional association the name triggers. The new Blazer might be a fine crossover, even if it's not the Blazer you remember. The Mach-E might be a great EV, even if it doesn't feel like a Mustang. The new Charger might be a genuinely exciting car, even if it doesn't have a Hemi. Names are stories that car companies tell you to make you feel something before you've experienced anything. The feeling is real, but it's generated by the name, not the product. Your job as a buyer is to separate the two, to feel the nostalgia, acknowledge it, and then set it aside while you evaluate what's actually sitting in the showroom. The car companies will keep recycling names because it works. Your defense is knowing why it works and not letting it override your judgment. Creating a new car name costs millions in trademark searches, linguistic screening, domain acquisition, and awareness building. Recycling an old name is essentially free. The recognition, the emotion, and the trademarks are already there. Nostalgia is a neurological event that triggers dopamine, making old names feel inherently good. Car companies hoard trademarks on discontinued models specifically to keep them available for future use. Name recycling works when the product matches the name's identity. The Ford Bronco, the Dodge Challenger, the Fiat 500. It fails when the product contradicts the name's identity. The Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, the Chevy Blazer, the Acura Integra. Alphanumeric naming avoids emotional baggage but carries less marketing power. The Mustang Mach-E proved that commercial success and enthusiast approval are two different things. The EV transition will accelerate name recycling because familiar names make unfamiliar technology less intimidating. As a buyer, evaluate the car on what it is, not what it's called. Car companies don't recycle names because they're lazy. They recycle names because names are the most valuable marketing assets they own. A good name, one that carries decades of cultural weight, emotional resonance, and built-in consumer recognition, is worth more than any advertising campaign. It's a shortcut to the part of your brain that makes purchasing decisions based on feeling, not spreadsheets. The next time a manufacturer announces the return of a legendary nameplate, don't react with excitement or outrage. React with curiosity. Ask the only question that matters. Does the car honor what the name represents? Or is it just borrowing the name's credibility for a product that hasn't earned it? If the answer is the first one, you might be looking at something great. If the answer is the second one, you're looking at a marketing strategy wearing a badge it doesn't deserve. Either way, now you know why they do it. And knowing why means you'll never fall for the name without checking what's underneath it. If this video made you think differently about car names, or if you're still personally offended by a specific name revival and need to vent, hit like. Drop the worst name recycling crime in the comments because I know the Eclipse Cross is going to win that poll by a landslide. And subscribe so you stop forming opinions about cars based on badges instead of what's actually under the hood, or under the floor, since it's probably a battery now. Later.